Welcome to Culture Couch Live. We've got Mel, we've got Adam, and we've got Carly. How are we, crew? Everyone
Hi,
good?
Ruzi.
Very well, Paul.
Happy birthday, Ruzi. Ruzi's birthday week, everybody.
Happy birthday.
Week. It's a little bit of spread out. You know, when you got sort of kids all over the place, you don't have a day, you have a week. It's actually pretty cool. So I had
Festival of Paul.
Yeah, and as it should be. As it should be. Sent my oldest son a text message because he's Friday night. I said, mate, I'm a pretty good person. You better look up to me. So yeah, it's sort of spread out. When you're a bit younger, everyone's together. So it's one day, and it's sort of set and forget, isn't it? But as you get older, it gets wider and wider and wider. But you don't get any more presents. In fact, you get less. You get donuts. You get Jack.
You get a lot of love, though, Ruzi, I think.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. So I had a good birthday. So no, very good. All right, let's get into it. I've got a question here, and as I normally do, because it's a long question, I'll paraphrase it. So it's from Christine. And what she said, we spend about the first 10 or 15 minutes in executive team meetings arguing about our own silos. Is that unusual? Again, I'm just going to paraphrase the question. And the reason I like it, because it does come up a lot, doesn't it? I've been in sessions where we've effectively had to stop about 15, 20 minutes in. And that's why I like the question from Christine. We've actually had to remind everyone in the room, hang on, are you a team? And that's a question that we constantly ask. So let me start by framing, Carly. What is the problem? Why do we often see when we get to the executive level, it's quite combative in the first sort of 10 or 15 minutes? And you almost feel like, whoa, are we all in this together? Or to Christine's point, we seem to be fighting against each other. Why does that happen, do you think?
I think the main reason really is that people get so caught up in their day-to-day work and the little things. You have your to-do list, you need to get through it, you need to just focus on bang, 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 what do I need to do and what am I responsible for in this moment? And I think people get caught up in that. But it's really about the mindset of the bigger picture. So, when you open it up and you say, are we a team? Do we want to be a team? And can we benefit from being a team? We've never heard anyone say no. The answer is always yes. But it's just, reframing that mindset and then going, okay, so if we are a team, what are my priorities? And, how should I change my behavior so that we are acting more as a team? We're being more inclusive, we're being more communicative, we've got those different goals in mind. So I think you just get caught in the day-to-day, Ruzi, and you just sometimes forget that what the perspective is.
And I'm going to ask you a question. So how much responsibility is on the CEO to really set the purpose of the team and not, well, this is the marketing, this is the IT, this is the sales? To me, a lot of stuff that we talk about at Culture Couch comes back to role modeling behavior, doesn't it? Like, as the CEO, it really is incumbent on that particular person to sell the vision, to sell the purpose, to sell the values and the behavior. Is that right or wrong?
I think it's 100% correct. Ultimately, of course, all responsibility comes back to the CEO. And then the challenge within that is you've got to know, as the CEO, you cannot do it alone. Yeah. And so you have to be able to share this responsibility with people you trust, people who accept the goals of the business, and they also accept the values and the behaviors that you all hold dear. And then I know you've talked about this a lot, Paul, it's your systems. Yeah. You build the systems and the processes that are going to keep supporting that. So when you describe a scenario of people walking into a meeting and arguing a bit, you'd say, well, there's a good bit there in that they all clearly care, right? Because they've clearly built this up and they want things to be better. But what seems to be not working as well as it should is how to do that and defining what my responsibility is within that.
Yeah, I think it's a good point, isn't it, Mel? Like, what systems have you seen that have worked? Because I remember one of the first workshops I ever did with when we first started Performance by Design. And it was exactly as Christine was talking about. And then it was a bit of department feedback, and one of the departments said, "Oh yeah, but I don't like it when you send the emails back and ask 3 or 4 more questions." And I was sort of sitting there. It wasn't a big office. I was sitting there thinking, and I asked the question, which I don't know, it didn't sound that stupid to me, but maybe it did to them. I said, so you actually send an email back. Why don't you just jump out of your chair and walk into their office and say, oh, look, can you help me with these 3 questions? And they looked at me like I had 2 heads. It's sort of like, it was, but again, in the world that I've existed in of a team sport. So Mel, what do you see, through your journey and adding to Carly and Adam? Well, why do you think it's not the first thought when people come into the exec team meeting? This is my team. This is our purpose. We are working together. Why does that not happen?
It's an interesting thought, because I think in my experience, I've seen leaders of silos who are so passionate about their teams and their remit that they almost become competitive, and lose sight of exactly what Adam referenced, the bigger picture. And the bigger picture is the responsibility of the leader to impart that and make sure that everybody understands and is on the same journey. But in my experience, there's different levels and different reasons for that competitiveness. Some of it's individual. Some of it comes down quite from a very pragmatic perspective. Some of it actually comes back to commissions and budgets and things like that. So when a department has a budget, and I've seen this restructured in a really thoughtful manner. So I suppose it talks to the system question that you asked as well, but some departments don't necessarily need budgets. They just need to do good jobs. I've seen marketing departments within a sales organization have their own budgets, and some of it doesn't necessarily make sense from a bigger picture. I understand why they exist. Some leaders think that they might inspire teams, but it can actually develop some level of unnecessary competition and ruin that ability to work as a true team. So working towards the bigger goal, not towards the goal of your team. So I think it's the reasons that competitiveness exists are important to understand as well. Some of it does come down to individuals. I mean, like you say, people have got preferences of communication style, leadership style, all these different things come into play. But if you have the bigger picture, to very much to the system that we work within, everybody understands, buys in and moves forward together rather than as individual silos.
Well, I think that talks to structure too, doesn't it, Ruzi? Like, how often do you review your structure? Is your structure working? Is it the best way that it can be? Should we keep tweaking it? It probably also leads to that question, I think.
I reckon, Carly, in that structure, I think what Mel said is right. And I think is it Simon Sinek that talks about the scoreboard is wrong. And I reckon that's part of the system, isn't it? If we're always marking ourselves on just the marketing department or just the sales department, on just the IT department, as human beings, we're driven by what's rewarded. That's a fundamental principle of a performance by design system, isn't it? What are you rewarding? What are you challenging? So if you're rewarding silos, what are you going to get? Silos. You're gonna get silos. So, and then there's Adam. It's funny. The other point I want to pick up with Mel said, then there's that competitive nature, isn't it? Like, why are we competing against each other? Which is really strange, isn't it? But probably gets back to my original question to you, or again around systems and what Simon Sinek talks about, the scoreboard's wrong. But how do we not channel that competitive nature collectively?
Look, and I've done this process, so I wholeheartedly endorse it. And I would go to a couple of things. First is, how you pay is how you play, right? So if you define someone's remuneration,
that.
And well, it's true, isn't it? It's how you pay is how you play. And so if you are incentivizing a very linear focus on something, well, then that's going to drive the very behavior that supports that. So really, budgets alone, costs, revenue, budgets alone are not enough. They're not enough to be significant company goals. There has to be an element of both what you're wholly there to do as a company and how you go about doing it. Now, I support there's got to be targets. Some of them are fiscal, but not only fiscal, right? So I think at that very top end, as long as you make that a shared experience and people understand why, and they get to have input onto all those goals, it makes it so much more binding. When you understand the why, then you release the energy to actually achieve those things, because you don't question, why am I doing this? You know what you have to do. You build really good habits to support that behavior.
I think the other thing, Carly, that surprises me is even simply meeting, even just the nature of, because the number of times we talk to companies and, how often the exec team meet, maybe once a month, once every couple of months. And I'm sort of like, how do we, it's the most basic, simple principle of connection, isn't it? Like if we're going to try and build a team, the most simple thing, the way to build a team is get together.
Yeah.
But it's surprising, isn't it, how few times executive teams actually meet.
But perhaps that goes back to the priority though, Ruzi. Like if you understand that the exec team is your A team and that is the most important team because it's driving the business, then you put more priority on it and you meet more often. And so perhaps if they're not, if some businesses aren't meeting as often, they're not putting the right priority on that. And the other thing that is really interesting, I think, is the responsibility. So, you know, we often see a lot of people within teams saying, oh, we're dysfunctional and we're not talking between teams, but hopefully someone else will fix it. And I just think that the comment around responsibility and what can I do to make a difference is really, really important in this space, because it doesn't have to be about the big goals. It can just be about, who else should I bring into this conversation? Who else in another department should I build a relationship with? Who can I share my work with? So some of those smaller behavioural things I think are equally as important when we're talking about getting teams to act more as one. And I think everyone can play a role in that, not just the big dogs. So yeah, I think it's important to remember that we can all take responsibility for what we're doing within the workplace.
And again, it's a mindset, isn't it, Mel? It's the mindset of, okay, my job is important as head of marketing and I've got 10 people, 15 people. That's important. But the mindset of I'm working for X and this is my company. It's a significant shift in mindset, isn't it?
Absolutely. There's I think what we're sort of talking about is that sense of belonging as well, and the sense of valuing somebody's role. So somebody understands what their role is, and that's great. But in terms of, we were talking about the systems earlier, in terms of competitiveness, I mean, we talk a lot in our program about real talk, and that's recognizing the other person's contribution, the good stuff that they're doing. And that's a very powerful tool to diminish competitiveness, very powerful tool, because it shows the other person that you're working with them, acknowledging their work, and you're actually working towards a common goal. So it actually ticks a lot of boxes. It's a simple system to employ. And it also brings that higher purpose together. We're all working towards this. And what you did, mate, your contribution was great. So it breaks down that silo as well into departmentally. So it's a very powerful tool in that sense.
Yeah, 100%. Well, hopefully for Christine, I mean, it's not unusual. We'd say that, Christine, it's not unusual. So hopefully there's some systems in the answers, because it does come back to the systems. It comes back to the process, and ultimately it comes back to the leader and leaders. You know, if the head of marketing's got a combative, viewpoint and is just fighting for their team, well, it's going to show. Head of IT, whatever. Equally, the CEO, if the CEO's not bringing everyone together and perhaps starting the meeting with a gratitude and shout outs and the things we talk about. So hopefully, Christine, there's some really good parts to the system. So don't worry about it. But I think I like your point too, Carly. Do something about it, Christine. Step up. Don't just sit back. Say, stop the conversation up to 10 minutes. Say, guys, are we a team? I've been coming in here month after month. Our first 15 minutes are combative. I know. Hopefully it's a psychological safe workplace, but stop the meeting, Christine, and say, I don't believe we're a team. Are we a team? And have the conversation. That would be my note to finish up on. So guys, well done. I thought it was a really good discussion and something we certainly come across a lot. So thanks, Carly. Thanks, Adam. And thanks, Mel.